Trump and the magic bullet. Remember, we had one during the Kennedy assassination. I mean, it was crazy. A bullet that left the gun somehow went through everybody, ended up in a pristine condition, found inside the front of the president's limousine after he was already taken to the hospital. Well, was this Trump's magic bullet with this assassination attempt? I mean, certainly we know it was divine in that he turned his head just at the last second and it was able to miss being assassinated just by perhaps an angel's hair. He missed being assassinated for being hit. But what evidence do we have that's coming out in this investigation? I'm going to tell you, I don't think we're going to have a good investigation yet. I am afraid that we are having a setup. Let me tell you why. One of the easiest crimes to get away with is the one that's never investigated. And now we're sitting here looking at the assassination attempt on President Trump, and who's looking into it but the FBI. And we saw Director Wray come and testify in front of the House talking about what he was going to be doing. And what was interesting, when he was asked the scope of his investigation, he said the scope of his investigation was looking just at the shooter and the shooter in relation to the shooting at President Trump, but not into his brothers and sisters in the Secret Service and law enforcement or anything to do with what they might have had to do with it. That's for the other investigations, not for him to do. Well, I just think that that's a setup, plain and simple. Look, this is starting to sound like the Epstein death once again. We're starting to have more and more evidence come out. And as I said in my first video that I did on this about all the problems with the way the security bubble was put around Trump and how it was executed, that I think it looked far more than incompetence and perhaps looked a lot darker than that. Like perhaps there was collusion in this assassination attempt. Wray made no mention that he was going to be looking at any collusion. Do you remember Epstein and how so suddenly the guards went away, no one saw them, the cameras weren't working and on, and oops, he was found hung and dead, and no one knows how he did it. And as famously now, Epstein didn't kill himself, is the saying everybody goes by. Well, it's starting to look like that's the same playbook here for the investigation into the shooting at Donald Trump. Information is starting to come out now about how there were actually a 3-sniper team in behind looking at where the shooter was. One of them went home early or didn't come in. Another one went outside and locked himself out of the building, so he called his partner on the inside to leave the window and come down and help get him into the building, and this took 5 minutes or so. And during that 5 minutes or so when these 3 people were off their post, that's also the same time when the shooter squeezed off his shots. No one happened to be looking. You know, we had the director of the Secret Service, when she was asked, did you get all the communications recorded from all of the radio and all the talk? She says, well, I don't know, I'm not too sure. I'm not sure if we actually captured that or not this time. Well, how convenient. Because I have to tell you something. I've looked at all the top people that operate in this field. I know a fair bit about it myself, having operated in it. But I looked at some of the top people, some of the ex-Delta Force SEAL team guys like Tim Kennedy, Sean Ryan, the guy that shot Osama bin Laden. And they're all saying this looks like it was set up, basically. They're saying there's no way this goes past the level of incompetence. Nobody would have left that area open. So my question is, how are we trusting the FBI to do this investigation? The head of the House Oversight Committee said on the record, we don't trust the FBI to investigate this. That's what they said. So where are we going to get the answers on this? They're apparently supposed to be putting together a blue ribbon panel that's going to have 7 Republicans and 6 Democrats at it to look at all of this. And an inspector general's look at this to see what they're describing is the intent and the scope in that document, at least what I saw online, was to look at lapses in security and how we can prevent these lapses from occurring again. Well, what if these weren't lapses? What if these were people involved in somehow assisting? Yeah, it's a dark place to go. But I think it's a place you have to go if you're going to investigate this correctly. Because I don't see how this just happened through accident or incompetence. And if you don't look at it through that lens, you'll never get the answer to that. So my questions are, you start to look at the investigation already. We saw the FBI up on the roof hosing off the area where they shot the bad guy. Just like taken a hose to the crime scene. Did we gather all the investigative evidence from there? Did we gather all the gunshot residue? Have we captured all the bullets that were shot from that gun? There's cartridges there. Have we captured all the bullets? Was there an attempt to capture all the bullets? The bullets that have been captured, are they going to be checked forensically to see if they actually came from that gun or if there might have been a different gun? You can look at the firing pin patterns on it, the injector scratches that'll be on the casings, and on the bullets, the rifling that's on the bullet. Was that all collected so that can be done? Or no, we just kind of washed down the scene, cleaned it up, and to heck with the forensic evidence. Was there any checking for gunpowder residue up in the water tower? What about in the other windows that had an angle at that way going from that building? There's some suspicion there could have been a second shooter. Well, how are you going to know unless you look and you ask the questions for that? So far, I'm not seeing that they're doing the investigation in a way that's going to capture that, if there was collusion. And look, Inspector Ray didn't do himself or the FBI any favors. And let me distinguish something here. I think the service level, operational level FBI people love him. But this leadership has really been garbage throughout the way they've managed themselves, particularly in respect to President Trump. Like him or hate him, everybody deserves a fair shot, not a prejudiced shot of someone coming after them. Now, Ray at the hearing with the House said, oh, I'm not even sure that it was an assassination. It might have been some glass that hit him in the ear or something. What? I mean, the president doctor is on record, and a couple of days later, the FBI actually corrected the record and said that no, it was a bullet that hit him in the ear. But there's Ray spraying around some crap. How can you trust this man to do the investigation when he says we're not looking at our brothers and sisters on this? This is the same as was just recently a big gold heist where somebody stole millions of dollars worth of gold from a secure warehouse up in the Toronto area. And you know how they did it? Oh, someone on the inside. The truck driver came up and gave a phony bill of lading to the manager, and he, just happened to load the gold on instead of 20 heads of lettuce or whatever it was, and the gold has just disappeared. So when you have crimes like this, the idea of inside collusion is normal. It's not the abnormal not to look for collusion when something like this happens. And if this would be the same as any police death when someone dies in police custody, you need an open and fair investigation into this. I don't think we're getting one. And I think we really have to keep our eye on this. I think the evidence is being tampered with. I think the scopes of the investigation are not serious enough. I think the people doing the investigations at this point are not the right people for doing it. And I'm not sure we're going to get to the answers for this. And there's still months to go before the election. Many of the people, the top people in special forces are saying Trump needs his own private security because they're not even sure that they can, believe it or not, trust the Secret Service. And all those things that I talked about in my first video on the attempted assassination of President Trump, you'll be able to link to it at the end of this video, are basically coming true. Everything from the inept team that was put on instead of the classic team that Trump had on him before, to the lack of communications. In fact, a report was just out before I went to record this that says the local SWAT team there in Butler said they never met or heard from the Secret Service at all, going right up into that whole rally. They said they only heard and talked to them after the shooting. Well, who's responsible for that incompetence? If I've got a close protection client and I've got a trained SWAT team out on the perimeter working for me, you think I'm not going to talk to them and have them on the ball for looking after my client? Look, this is starting to smell really, really badly. I watched a very good interview that Tucker Carlson did with Jack Prosobic on his channel. And Jack's a pretty smart guy, and he asked some pretty good questions on there about what need to be looked at. I'd encourage you to look at Tucker Carlson's video on that. But we're not near the end of looking at this unless we're going to continue to sweep this under the rug. And I don't want to see this swept under the rug. So check out my previous video on the assassination attempt. Like and follow if you like the information that we have on here. And I'll look for your comments in the sections below. Until then, let's keep our eye on this.